at this point.
So what is the solution, or
Well,
what is
the solution,
or a solution? What do why
I'm trying
why
to
did you write?
increase our cultural resiliency, trying to strengthen the human organism. Rather than telling companies to treat people better, I'm asking people to build up their own strength, establish rapport with each other, find solidarity, change our values, start looking at yourself as having intrinsic value and worth, which most of us don't right now. Most of us think we need to accomplish something or provide something in order to have value. And we don't. I think we come in with value.
Hey everybody, so I just got done listening to my latest episode of the Look Up podcast with Douglas Rushkoff. Douglas is a best-selling author, a public intellectual. His latest book, Team Human, highlights some of the challenges that we face as a society and offers compassion and connection as a potential solution, although Douglas wouldn't claim to have the answers. I like to listen to all the episodes after I record them. It's been probably like 3 weeks since I met Douglas, and in listening to it again, I just feel like I learned a ton. And this is a little bit of an experiment here. I know that a lot of people don't love listening to hour-long podcast episodes, so I'm also going to be posting to YouTube some of my thoughts after, speaking to guests, hopefully in the future right after, and then also after listening to episodes if I have the opportunity to do it again. I think what I loved about speaking to Douglas was that this is a man that has written multiple New York Times bestsellers, has produced multiple documentaries for PBS and other programs, and has been extremely thoughtful over the last 20 years, writing 20 books. And yet here's a man that was still questioning whether or not what the work that he's doing was having an impact, or whether it was just contributing to the noise. And in speaking to him, it really led me to question a little bit more why I'm doing this, and if I think that this will have an impact. And I continue to just come back to this idea that, if this show resonates with even one person, or any episode resonates with one person, that will have been worthwhile. And while, there's a part of me that's extremely ego-driven and wishes that I could have, 50,000 listeners per episode and really scale this thing up, the reality is that that's probably not going to happen in the near term, and maybe ever. And I have to be okay with that. But I think awareness is crucial. And if I'm learning something from guests like Douglas, then I hope that those of you that are listening are learning something as well. We talk a lot about podcasting, whether or not that's just like a game played by a bunch of white middle class and upper class men that are just trying to, out converse one another, and are just contributing to the noise rather than actually taking action to make change. And it's a good question, but I think it's really important work. I really do. And not just because I'm starting this. I mean, I wouldn't have started this if I didn't think that was the case. And again, I think it's about sharing ideas, learning, growing together. And I don't know, I found myself, defending Douglas's work to him. He's just coming off of a long book tour, and I can tell he was left with more questions than answers, which is, sobering, because I'm on this journey of exploration, of discovery, and to know that 20 years from now I might circle back and just end up in the same place, generally is a little bit challenging. But again, Douglas is incredible. If you have the opportunity to listen to the full episode, I really hope that you do. He is discussing a lot of the issues that we face as a society today, this idea of progress, the idea of technology solving all of our problems, the challenges with capitalism. And I don't know of a better system out there than free market capitalism, but, obviously it has a lot of negative consequences. We talk about billionaires and how a lot of them are now creating escape plans for themselves if there ever were some kind of crisis, rather than trying to contribute to fixing some of the problems with our systems. And I think that's interesting. So I hope there's a call to arms from Douglas's work. There's a lot that needs to be improved. Obviously, life is good, but there's more that we can do, and I hope that continuing to produce these shows will help inspire others to take action and inspire myself to take action. So we'll see how this little experiment goes. It's about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I think maybe I'll keep these to 5 minutes. And thank you again for listening along. And always feel free to shoot me any questions, thoughts, ideas, guest recommendations. We're at episode 6 right now. We'll be, definitely releasing 11. I've got more guests to come, but, just figuring it out as I go. So thank you for your time. Take care. Douglas Rushkoff.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I was just profusely thanking you earlier before we started recording. You haven't heard an episode?
No, but I do know you were a banker.
I was a banker in a past life.
And what does that mean? You weren't like a teller.
I wasn't like a teller. No, really? No, I was not. I was an investment banking analyst at Morgan Stanley.
And what does that mean? So you analyzed what? The market or like companies?
We analyzed company financials. We would do income statements, balance sheets, and we essentially provided the debt for private equity funds like Blackstone, KKR, all that jazz to go out and buy companies.
You provided the debt.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they want money? Do they want debt? In other words,
they do. They want other people's money. So when Blackstone or KKR buy a company, they get debt from a bank to finance anywhere up to like 75% of that purchase.
They get money from a bank.
From a bank. It's called leverage.
Why do you call it debt?
Buyout. Because the company ends up holding the debt. So when they buy a company, they restructure the entire cap table. And so now there's 75% of the cap table is new debt, or it could be less. It could be 50%.
Usually of the new company.
Of the existing company that they purchase.
So I want to say I buy Hershey's. Yeah. Hershey's we decide is worth $10 million.
Yes.
Now I'm get money from you.
You would get money from, if you're Blackstone, you would get money from Morgan Stanley. Call it like, if it's worth $10 million, you said. So $7.5 million worth of debt, 2 different tranches, maybe like a senior term loan and then some unsecured junior debt below that. And then 25% or 2.5 million of that would be equity. And that equity is what Blackstone invests. And the reason they do that is because they can take the cash flows from Hershey's and then they can pay down that debt over time. And even if there's really barely any growth in that company, then it's a positive return because the equity starts to take up a larger portion of the cap table.
So they want to buy it as a mortgage rather than just with their cash.
Oh yeah, that's the whole model. It's called a leverage buyout.
So why don't they just... So that way they'll buy 10 companies rather than one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because if you have $100 million and you only have to put up 25% per company, right, you can buy 4 times more companies.
And does Morgan Stanley do it to the other way around?
Morgan Stanley does have a private equity group as well, so they'll go out and buy companies. But
they won't borrow money from Blackstone, though. BlackRock or whatever.
Well, they might.
That'd be funny.
They might borrow money. Well, yeah. There's a lot of leverage sloshing around in this system. It's money on money. But I wanted to...
Did you become a billionaire?
Did I become a billionaire? Yeah. No, I didn't. I gave up before I became a billionaire.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I looked around and I'm not there yet. But I want to know something, Douglas.
Yeah.
Why are you such a spoiled sport?
In what way? How am I spoiled?
I read the book.
Yeah.
So obviously,
why do I see through this game?
I mean this in an endearing
why don't I
way.
participate in the competitive game of our society?
What is it about spoiled sports that's so important?
Well, it was Huizinga was this, he was a guy who wrote a book called Homo Ludens. And that book, it was written right before the Nazis. He was a Dutch philosopher. And he thought that the essence of humanity was play. That we're not Homo sapiens, man the knower. We're Homo Ludens, man the player. And that we misinterpret play. That we think that like dogs play in order to practice for the hunt. And he said, no, dogs hunt in order to have enough like calories so they can get to play. That play is the end game, not the means to an end. And that real play can't have like stakes to it. It has to be for the sake of it. for the sake of its own, just the fun of play. And he looked at society and these sort of games that we play, like capitalism would be this game, but that we hate cheaters less than we hate spoil sports. Because cheaters, at least by cheating, they demonstrate that the game has some kind of value to it, that it's important enough to cheat. If you're just a spoil sport and you don't recognize the game at all, you're just like, this is stupid. That's much more threatening to the status quo because you're challenging the whole presumption on which society is based.
Cheaters still want to play the game. They just don't. They want to play by their own rules, but they want to win. They understand. Yeah. They share the same outcome bias or the same desires as the other people playing the game. And spoiled sports choose not to play the game.
They don't value the stakes of the game at all. And I don't value the stakes of this game.
And what's the game that we're playing versus the game that you're playing?
Well, the game that they're playing is it's not a game even. It's I guess it is, but they forgot. It's competing for scarce resources, in a survival of the fittest battle. And that's not good. It will kill us all.
I don't know. I actually think the best players at that particular game are the ones that recognize that it is in fact a game. Like, for example, hedge fund managers that are successful I think the most successful hedge fund managers are successful because they actually find it to be enjoyable to be playing that game over and over and over and over. The ones that are just in it for potentially, they're in it for the money and that's the scoreboard that they keep.
Yeah.
But, if you go and you're like, I want to be a hedge fund manager because of money, you might not be successful unless you actually enjoy that.
Oh yeah, but once you get to say, Mark Cuban or Jeff Bezos level wealth, is the way for Jeff Bezos to create the greatest good for the most people at this time to continue playing the Amazon game the way he's been playing it?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that there's probably a more benevolent form of even just capitalism that he could be practicing that doesn't need to, impoverish so many people or turn them into little task rabbits.
When I think about Jeff Bezos, I think about, increasing the minimum wage at his company to $15 per worker, right? Driving the conversation forward in that way, while potentially taking over the entire world.
Yeah. But the people who get to work in his company are inside the moat. What about the millions that are on Amazon Turks, or that are supposed to be somehow just servicing that
machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And even 15 is not that much, given how much there is in there.
Yeah.
Or how much? He doesn't have a trillion yet, but he's almost there for himself.
Yeah. So how do we move from a system that's driven by more to, when I think about this, I'm like thinking of what system we would move to, and I don't have the answer, right? So what is the system that we would move to? You mentioned tech cooperatives.
Yeah, I wouldn't just pick a single system and say, okay, let's transition from this to that. If I were going to, I'd probably say, sure, anarcho-syndicalism, networked cottage businesses that are only growing as big as they need to grow to function, that we're not growing companies in order to sell the companies, but we're growing companies in order to provide goods and services to people, which is just not the way we do it now. Now the company is the equity, right? Yeah. And so how do you get there? You would reverse the capital gains tax with the dividends tax. That'd be one easy way, so that instead of rewarding people for selling their businesses, you reward them for selling goods and services or for working. You'd reward shareholders for getting dividends rather than, right now they shun dividends. They just want to.
Yeah, they want to buy back shares, increase the value of the equity.
Right, and then they want to sell their shares for the money and have a very low level of tax for a 1 or 2 year holding. My work is I'm going to hold the stock for 18 months.
It's what's so interesting. I saw your TED Talk as well, and you reference speaking to a room of tech billionaires,
Not even a room. I mean, 5 of them.
5 of them,
Yeah.
who are asking you about their escape plan,
Right. Their
when
survival strategies.
when the system falls apart.
The event.
How do you get into that room? Why are they listening to you when you clearly have no respect for the game that they're playing?
Oh, because they don't really have respect for the game that they're playing either. I mean, if they really respected the game that they're playing, then they wouldn't be building bunkers. That's the end game of the game that they're playing, right? And it is. I mean, you think about it as a poker game. If they were the last 5, which they're not, they were just mid-level billionaires. They're not like, Bezos, Musk billionaires.
Okay.
So they
just mid-level billionaires.
They don't get to build. They're not building rocket ships to get off the planet. They're not that rich. Okay. They could try to get a seat on one of Branson's, right? But that's a low-level billionaire at this point, because there's a couple of thousand billionaires, right?
Okay.
So they weren't the best of breed, as you'd put it. But they're coming to me because they know that I've been right about a lot of things in the future. So they're still just trying to place their bets. They look at it as an 80-20 sort of situation where there's a 20% chance that the event happens in their lifetime. So they're going to invest 20% of their money in those safety plays. And then who are you going to ask? I'm not the only one they're asking what to do. I'm sure they,
What are they afraid of?
What are they afraid of? I don't know if it's that they're afraid, but what they're looking forward to is climate change, social unrest, China, electromagnetic pulse, just calamity.
And these are all threats that are constantly growing and building in the background. But they're
thanks
afraid.
Largely to the very business activities these guys are involved in. You know what I mean? They're trying to build a car that could go fast enough to escape their own exhaust. And they kind of can't do it.
What kind of businesses are these guys in?
Some of them are in your business.
Which business is that?
My business I don't understand.
Oh, the money movement?
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the money movement. It's not my business anymore.
Yeah, but they're like, banker, hedge fund. There was a couple of tech people, but mostly investor people, not, the people who are right on about one thing. So it's like if you bet early you're 20 million on Salesforce.com, now you've got 20 billion.
Yeah.
And now what?
And all of a sudden you've achieved status. Your words are received with a certain level of respect for one decision.
Right. And the guy who bet on, Nailsforce.com, nobody gives a shit.
I remember betting on that one. That's probably why we're here right now.
But I'm sure there were, you know what I mean? I'm sure there were, skill-wise, I'm sure there was the people who bet on the winner, the lone winner, were not any more skilled than the people who bet on the loser.
I do like to see some of these successful founders chalking up their success to luck. I mean, there is an element of skill, right? I think we can appreciate when someone's good at something and want to give them credit for that, but there's also luck, especially in that world. And so I'm always impressed with
where
founders.
were they born to get to be a person who got to do that investment? True. So it's like, okay, if you're,
middle class white male.
Right, who got to go to college and got out of college without a lot of debt and got to intern for 2 years at Goldman, you're in a different place. And so then, you made a right bet. But, the kid who couldn't get the basketball scholarship to get out of, the ghetto didn't have those same chances.
Yeah, Warren Buffett calls it the birth lottery, maybe I think is what he calls it.
Yeah.
A good way to describe it. There's a lot. I mean, and do you feel that these gentlemen don't have an appreciation for that?
Maybe they do.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. It hasn't changed their behavior. They're just afraid. They feel that they need to earn enough money to insulate themselves from reality. And I understand that. I mean, even as a middle-class person, half of me wants to just, be part of Extinction Rebellion or Sunrise Movement and dedicate my life to that. And the other half of me is thinking, gosh, I'd love to, die with $1 million to pass something on to my daughter, because who knows what the world's going to be like, in 20, 30 years.
I always think about this. I had two friends in college, two of my closest friends. One of them, both of them wanted to be out of the system. One of them wanted to play the game, beat the game, and then make his own game. The other one wanted to just stop playing the game.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of not the cheater versus the
Spoiled sport,
but kind of, maybe just...
Well, if you leave the game, you are a spoiled sport. That's what, the mob doesn't let you out. You know what I mean? If you leave the game, you are devaluing the game for the rest of them.
So, why are we not seeing more, of these billionaires, more of these, we talk about you talk about in your book, the techno-humanists. Is that what you call them? Kind of like the Center for Humane Technology and that, right? Trying to kind of like the man with the hammer, everything is a nail.
Yeah.
Right? But why don't we see, to me, I feel like Tristan Harris and what he's doing is important work. Why don't we see more technologists, more billionaires, now that they've beat the game, so to speak, coming out and saying, hey, let's shake things up?
Yeah, shaking, it's weird though. They're I wonder if the humane technology, that whole movement, helps or hurts, and that it's still looking at things from the perspective of how technology is treating the people. We're still the passive kind of domesticated animals. So let's make technology that's less abusive, but it sort of accepts the given that these companies will be there. And I don't know, something about the energy or the context of that movement, it still feels like it's something coming out of B.J. Fogg's department at Stanford to me. It's like, all right, so now we've, used behavioral psychology to make people hate each other. Let's use behavioral psychology to, make people not hate each other so much. Or it's like they're accepting as a given that these companies have to make a ton of money and that they're the ones who are going to be running our world. But let's just go in there and I don't know. I just don't feel like it works. I remember years ago, this friend of mine, Adam Werbach, who was the youngest president of the Sierra Club.
What's the Sierra Club?
It's like an environmentalist
group.
It's big, like World Wildlife Federation and that stuff.
Okay.
And a great environmentalist thinker. And he got hired by Walmart to be head of their Walmart Green initiative. And the Walmart Green Initiative ended up being them encouraging their employees to carpool or their employees to give money to things. And it wasn't about changing Walmart's fundamental operation of just getting stuff from China and shipping it to the States. And when he took the job, a lot of us were like, I don't know if this is going to work. This might. And he's like, no, we've got faith. And they hired him just to greenwash themselves. That was, he got used that way. And I feel like some of these efforts...
Did he leave?
Yeah. Eventually, he left eventually. Yeah, disillusioned and whatever. But I don't know. My belief in sort of changing these companies from the inside is I have a low faith in that.
So what is the solution, or
what is the solution,
or a solution? What do you? Why did you write?
Increase our cultural resiliency, trying to strengthen the human organism. Rather than telling companies to treat people better, I'm asking people to build up their own strength, establish rapport with each other, find solidarity, change our values, start looking at yourself as having intrinsic value and worth, which most of us don't right now. Most of us think we need to accomplish something or provide something in order to have value. And we don't. I think we come in with value. You have value.
Thanks. I'm tearing up over
Just
here,
the
actually.
way you are.
Literally, it's the first time I've heard that in years. I'm so excited about that.
I know. And now we're even told that even telling a child that is a bad thing. Oh, that's the cuddle generation, that you told them that they're worth something. I'm not talking about giving someone a soccer trophy, even if they lost.
If they lost.
That's not, you're undermining that game then. You give it to the kid who won, that's fine. But losing doesn't mean you don't have value.
Yeah. But how, you mentioned that the value of a human is not his or her utility, right? It's not what we are able to do or offer.
Right, like the value of a stock might be its utility. It's a different person's not that.
Or a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
I know how you feel about blockchain, and
well,
that is another tech solution.
Go in good health, yeah.
But so is that why you wrote Team Human and why you're doing what you're doing with your podcast? And you've been on a lot of shows recently. You were just on Sam Harris. I listened to that episode. What is the message that, if you had to distill it down, what is the message that you're trying to deliver, and why are you trying to deliver it?
I mean, the main thing I'm trying to say is that, being human is a team sport, and that if you can stick with other people in the real world, make eye contact, establish rapport, breathe together, then you become part of the great conspiracy of human beings against these operating systems that are optimized for our failure. They're optimized to extract value and consciousness from us, and that there's still a few more scenes in this play. I think I think there's still some opportunity for even a sustainable future. I think humanity can squeeze through this. It's also, another reason I'm doing it from a more pessimistic angle is, if we're going into a true dark age, I want to at least create a few instruments or vehicles or mechanisms for there to be some continuity between this age and the next. So even if there's a terrible culling and tragedy, that there's some way to carry this through. I look at our civilization now as moving from, it's very biblical, really. A few people left Egypt, to be.
You reference the Passover story quite a bit in your book.
Yeah, well, that's the Jewish story, basically. It's the Passover story. But to move through the desert, they had to go, 40 years, 2 generations.
And here we are on Easter Sunday, by the way, the Last Supper having been a Seder.
But they had to keep that alive before they got to the next place. We're going to be in an in-between place after whatever happens.
So you fundamentally believe that there's something coming. There's something on the horizon.
I think we're in something.
We're in it already, and we don't even realize it. Is it political? Is it climate change? Is it?
It's a lot of
It's
things.
a lot of things. Because you touch on so many different topics. It's like
but they're all almost the same thing. It's the end of a very linear, progress-oriented approach to the world. That the West kind of came up with, along with the Judeo-Christian model. When we went from being, a circular society to a linear one, that was the invention of text allowed us to have history, to record the past, and contracts to predict the future. It set up a linear understanding of our world. And what the Israelite sages tried to do is to say, okay, if we're going to go linear, then let's think of progress in terms of social justice. Right? It's not about building, Tower of Babel. It's about having the world have more justice each year as you get closer and closer to Jerusalem, to the state of total social justice.
What is social justice?
Social justice is a universal human dignity.
And what is a universal human dignity? Let's really peel it back.
In one way, it's not hating people if they're gay or have brown-colored skin. It's obviously the dissolution of national boundaries and these sort of.
So moving to a global
or local.
Or local.
Yeah, I mean, just treating other people as living humans, not enslaving others. You know, universal social justice. You wouldn't buy smartphones that are made by little Chinese children, or
Yes, who have to use a chemical that's completely toxic so they can remove their fingerprints.
Yeah, isn't that a wild one? I found that out from Basma Novel.
That is crazy to me.
Phone. Yeah.
Could you imagine like opening your phone and seeing fingerprints? And, you know, I can't think the majority of people would have a negative reaction to that. But if they knew that the reason why their phone looks so pristine when it comes out of the box is because these workers need to wipe it down with a chemical that is literally toxic.
Yeah.
Just so that it looks like no one touched it.
Right.
It's crazy.
I know. Well, that's industrialism, though. It's getting humans out of the equation. You don't want people thinking about that. And that's since, Victorian era. But or the dumbwaiter, where the slaves are out of sight.
Yes. Thomas Jefferson and the dumbwaiter. And, you don't need to see them serving you food now. They can just bring it up on a rope. But if we're, if the goal of industrial society is to remove the human from the process of production, doesn't that then leave room for play? Right? Like, isn't it now? Isn't the goal?
But it doesn't really remove humans. It just removes human dignity. There's still tons of humans getting wiped out. It removes humans from sight. It removes humans from the value equation. So you have a few people getting a lot of stuff, and everybody else on TaskRabbit bringing it to them. I
mean, when I think about technology, I think I'm a technologist at heart. Like, I believe in, maybe, it's weird because I'm a practiced yogi and I believe in reincarnation fundamentally. And so I believe in a circular reality. But yet I also do believe that technology is moving us forward from a progress standpoint. And we may have just strayed from the right path from, creating clean water supply and abundant food sources to creating infinite content that we're all hooked to. And, and we just keep coming back to our phones. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is I think we need to shift from the largest companies in the world are essentially just vehicles for advertising to the largest companies in the world are ones like Memphis Meats that's creating, abundant food supply for humanity so that no one will starve. Like, that's technological progress to me. What do you say about that? Or am I just blabbering? Because I definitely am.
I'm worried that there's so many of us, well-meaning, well-educated, fairly articulate white guys.
I was just going to say white guys.
Who are filling up the podcast airwaves with our stuff. I just last night watched this, as much as I could tolerate, of this what was billed as this kind of heavyweight intellectual debate between, and they kept saying Dr.
Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, Dr. Jordan Peterson and Dr. Zizek.
Oh, okay.
And Zizek is one who at least I'm supposed to like, right? Because he's Lacanian, Marxist, Leninist, he's the left's one. And I couldn't even take it anymore. And then this friend of mine said, all right, don't watch that. Look at this. And he showed me
what
Russell
could you
Brand.
take about it? It was the intellectual psychobabble of two people that just are smelling their own farts, basically.
Well, you said that, not me. I agree that, Jordan
I haven't
Peterson,
watched this, by the way.
It was like Jordan Peterson trying to, without any intellectual credibility, trying to deconstruct Marxism on the fly. And Zizek, I don't even really know what Zizek was doing. And, defending, I guess, defending the subconscious, I guess, or psychology. And even psychology itself started to feel stupid to me. And then I watched two guys who I generally agree with, too. Russell Brand and on Joe Rogan.
Weren't you just on Russell Brand's show as well?
Which was fun.
I love his work. I think what he's doing is important. But anyways, continue.
Yes.
And Joe Rogan to some extent,
Yes
although
and
Joe,
no.
I think, promotes
Yes
some
and
pretty
no.
weird ideas.
I mean,
He's obviously the...
Russell Brand's important for sure, and bringing great things, and it's fun to watch someone involved in inquiry, but I just feel like there's too much of this
noise.
Yeah, or even, it's just I guess it's fine. It's the way some people are waking up now. I just don't know if the when I start to question how my stuff is not more of that, is when I start to question whether I should keep doing it. In other words, if another stream of the same old. I mean, what I was trying to think was different about what I was doing was that it's a more that I'm trying to demonstrate Team Human in action. What does it mean to engage alive with another person, to recognize their humanity, especially people that I don't necessarily agree with, to really resonate with them. So I was feeling like, oh, I'm doing something maybe different. But I think maybe only on half the shows am I doing that. And the other half could be conversations on anybody's podcast.
Well, I think about that a lot, and I think about being a charlatan a lot. And especially because, the reason I'm doing this or started doing this was because I was on a documentary about having gotten conned. And participating in this music festival that was...
Oh, right.
That was like, not even... It was like 1,000... It was 1,500 people or something like that, right? It wasn't... But because it was on social media, it was just... It exploded, right? And then having participated in the modern media machine with a Netflix documentary against the Hulu documentary and seeing how that competition between those platforms telling the same story just a little bit differently, led to an explosion of interest. And that's why, I'm here. And of course, maybe I have no right to be talking about some of these things. And that's okay. But then, using social media as a tool to talk about the challenges of social media, I'm like, am I a hypocrite? Going up on stage to do a TED Talk, right, is, to tell the same message. That
because I've been pissing on TED for many years.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then they finally asked me to do one. And I'm like, well, now what do I do?
But it's about awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what we can fall back on. So, yeah, like there's maybe 100,000 TED Talks now, and they all talk about the same 5 to 10 cliches. But I think that those cliches are fundamental truths of humanity that every time someone repackages it in their own words, maybe it connects with one person. So what you're doing is important, in my opinion, because you're connecting with that one person, and that's all that matters. And then that ripples out to every person that they connect with on Team Human, right? And so, yeah, I get stuck in this jaded. I haven't even launched this podcast yet. I've recorded 6 episodes. I'm like, I listen to them like, why am I doing this as well? Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I have a little platform and that's an ego thing? Possibly.
Well, the question is, we're using these scalable technologies to do something that everyone can't do at scale. So Russell Brand has 2 million people listen to his podcast. I have 50,000 listen to my podcast. And not everybody can even do 50,000 person ones or 10,000 person ones.
Yeah, that would be a dream, 50,000 people listening to this show. That'd be cool.
But
why? I don't know.
If I'm going to really walk the walk, though, I've reached enough people. I've written 20 books. I've made television documentaries. I've showed up on all this stuff. My basic spiel has been out there.
So what does walking the walk look like?
Just engage with the people I come face to face with in real life and don't worry about anything else. I get to teach classes at City University of New York and reach a couple hundred people a year that way. It should be more than enough. In other words,
it's almost like blitz scaling for Team Human is like counter to what you're trying to say.
Right. I put the message out there and reach the people I'm going to reach. And now I can try to pedal to the metal. And I mean, a lot of people came up and said, oh, I get emails all the time about, oh, here's how we could scale your message, or let's do Team Human conferences, or
yeah, for sure,
blah, and this and that and the other.
WME's hitting you up, or UTA. They want to do a tour.
Oh, that'd be great. They're not. But it's, non-commercially things. But in order to what? It's not that I don't believe in the idea or the meme or the process or whatever it is, but I'm keenly aware of what constitutes forcing it. When promotion, when solid love of the idea becomes leveraged, as you might put it. It's like the EST training. I did that way back when. Before it was like Landmark now. It's one of those self-improvement kind of things.
I was just talking about Landmark with two of my friends on the way up here.
And what they do is...
MITT.
Yeah. People take it, and then to graduate or to finish, you're basically required to enlist other people in it. Because their logic is, if it was meaningful to you, then you would naturally spread it to others. And if you're not spreading it to others, it means you didn't really get it.
So it's the ultimate MLM.
Yeah, it is. It's the MLM,
marketing.
where you're really just, as Werner Erhard would have put it originally, the founder, just selling people back to themselves. There's nothing even there except...
What a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, he was a car salesman, and he said, I realize I'm not really selling cars to people. I'm selling them
their dreams.
Selling them back to themselves. So what about doing that without the product?
But isn't that all...
That's self-hypnosis.
Isn't that all philosophy? Like, why do great philosophers write their works?
Well, it depends. I mean, philosophy went down such a dark path. I mean, the intellectual path brought us to fascism. And that's where
poor Nietzsche. I don't think he intended for that to happen.
No, but that's where it went. And that's why Levinas, who was kind of a post World War II philosopher psychologist, said, the only way to restore this tradition is through human intimacy, through the warmth of human to human, and that it can't be this purely. We're not going to solve our way out of this. There is no. That's why whenever you say, "What's the solution?" There is no solution. There's solidarity. There's comfort. Back to Judaism. There's this great medieval prayer called the Unetana Tokef that they do every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's this famous prayer where they go. It is on Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed. Who will live and who will die, and who
gets in the book of life.
The book of life, right? Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, everybody just thinks, oh shoot, I got to pray so I get in the good book, not the bad book. But that's not the point. The point is at the end of it says, only through, like Ruach, through compassion with each other can we lessen the severity of the decree. So what they're saying is, whatever's going to happen is going to fucking happen. All that we have is power over whether it's how cruel it's going to be, how cruel nature is going to be to each other. And the way we can lessen that cruelty is by being there, by being compassionate with each other.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, shoot.
Well, that idea of compassion, permeates all religions.
Right.
And that's yoga, why it's not just ahimsa.
Right. But that's why it's not all just bullshit. When you're saying, isn't that just all religions? The compassion part is what's there. The solidarity, the community, the fraternity is part of what's there. I mean, 12 steps, you can't do 12 steps alone with the book. You got to go to the meetings.
For sure. And the same thing about studying Talmud or studying the Bhagavad Gita, right? Like we can tend to over-intellectualize these things. I certainly do. I read them, and not to mention, bringing it back to social media, I've trying to find my own voice, for this platform. I don't, why? Yeah. I don't know, but are arbitrary quotes, from great thinkers and great texts alone enough, to inspire? Or are they just new data, new fuel for this machine that's going round and round and round?
For me, it's going round and round and round, and it's weird because I'm in that strange place of being famous enough to be in constant demand, yet not quite famous enough to call my own shots. So it's like I'm sure Russell Brand is invited to be on 100 podcasts a day.
Yeah, Russell Brand gets to
and
do
he picks one a month. Maybe he'll go on.
Well, you
Joe
probably
Rogan.
get invited to a ton. I mean,
I'm getting invited to billions. But
I was really like, again, thank you for coming.
Oh,
here.
sure. I mean, I'm trying to now. What I'm doing is I'm only taking one if I can cross off two others.
Can I get an honest like? Why did you agree to come on this show? Because I cold emailed you.
Because this guy, I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, this guy who's working with me said that the documentary you were in was cool. So then I started to watch that, and I was like, "Oh fuck, you went through it."
Yeah, a little bit.
You went through it. I mean, not as bad as the guy from Ghost Ship.
From what?
Ghost Ship? You know the Ghost Ship?
No.
There was a Ghost Ship fire in Oakland where all these kids died in a rave.
Oh wow!
And then the cult leader of the Ghost Ship and his number one assistant, kind of your character, they got put in jail.
Wow!
Because it wasn't just people died.
People died, and that was something that I felt we were really lucky about. You know, the worst thing that happened was like someone stepped on a sea urchin. You know, we had like 20 doctors who didn't have a license to practice in the Bahamas. They were hanging out by the pool. I got a call from the hotel that told me that the doctors were hammered at the hotel and they were acting up and almost got kicked out. This group of 20. Anyways, it was a mess. So it was the documentary that brought it, which is fine.
I guess. Yeah, and it was a little different. And because I had to be in the city now anyway, because my daughter's at this play.
Yeah, she's watching the Book of Mormon.
She's watching the Book of Mormon.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I saw that a few years back.
I know.
It's a fun one.
It's not really appropriate for her, though. There's the guy that gets the Book of Mormon up his butt.
Yeah, they they do a big fuck you to God, like.
Yeah, well, that's fine. She's an atheist.
Okay, cool.
So that's fine. She's more of an atheist than I am. I don't think she believes in any. Although she still believes in.
So you would consider yourself an atheist, not an agnostic?
I don't know what I am, but she's an atheist. She's an atheist, but she believes that fairies once existed.
Oh, interesting.
She thinks they went extinct, though.
They went extinct.
Yeah.
Like the children of the forest kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like why would they want to be here? You know?
Well, if they were interdimensional, it would be fine.
Maybe they are interdimensional.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, what are those ones called?
Maybe we're all interdimensional.
What are they called, those little ones in Buddhism? Devas? Aren't they these little fairy kind of people?
Devas, they are, yes. That's interesting. I think about this all the time. I was a big Planet Earth fan. I'm sure I mentioned this in another episode before, but I'm just going to keep repeating the same shit over and over for 100 episodes.
They just did another one, right?
They just did another one. So there's the Deep Oceans episode. And they show this creature just floating in the deep ocean. And basically they're like, this creature is essentially invisible to every other creature at this depth because it emits a light that other creatures can't see. And so I think about that all the time. And I'm like, if I had to use one proof for the idea that there are spirits beyond our perception or ghosts, this is it. We're floating in our own fluid right now. We're in air, right? And so what? I can't see what else is out there, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
We have instruments.
We have instruments? Like what kind of instruments? EM. Another episode I was doing, we were talking about the electromagnetic soup that is killing all of us slowly right now.
Yeah. It is, though.
I know it's probably not funny. My phone now says 5GE.
You're on 5G?
5GE. It's like AT&T's hack at 5G. It's apparently complete marketing bullshit.
It's not really 5G.
It's not really 5G. But still, I mean, it's...
Samsung's making 5G.
I mean, where you live, I'm guessing... Do you have good cell service up where you live?
No.
Okay, good. But guess what? It's coming.
I know.
You thought you could hide.
Well, I was looking. There's like devices you can buy for your home that are supposed to help protect you from the badness.
Yeah.
But there's all these different strategies. One of them, this woman makes it like ionizes the water in your skin, so then your body repels the stuff. But then what does it mean when you ionize your skin? Is that good or bad for you? Either?
I don't know. I mean, and Yeah, it's just we're not going to do anything about it until people start coming with like lumps on the side of their heads and things like that from cell phone use or like until there's scientific evidence.
Right, as opposed to just like Trump being president and everybody being crazy. That's not enough.
Well, there's a Trump tweet from 2014 over there. It says, "Is a president? Are we allowed to impeach a president for incompetence?" He tweeted that in 2014
Yeah.
about Obama. So I don't know. I guess not.
Yes,
Oh man, this isn't about politics though. But yeah, it's
no,
interesting.
I mean the politics thing. It's more just the madness.
Yeah.
I think people are experiencing themselves in a state of great incoherence right now. And I guess what I'm looking at is if I'm a canary in the coal mine, I just had a book come out, so I understand why I would be crazy, right? So from December through now, I've been doing, an average of maybe 3 podcasts a day and
Wow.
traveling to 1 or 2 cities.
Yeah, it's no wonder
week.
you're tired. You're tired
Right.
of everything you've been saying.
So I'm
You're
a
already
little
ready for
burned
the next
out.
book.
Yeah, I'm a little burned out. And I was already burned out before I started. And I wrote this book as kind of this last, it's really a coda in a way. It's an end cap to this last 20 years of inquiry.
So what are you going to do now? Are you just going
I
to
don't
fade
know.
away into your home and just keep it quiet and not be out in the public anymore?
No.
What do you want to do?
I don't know.
You
I
know?
mean, I would like to be.
You have this podcast. I mean, it's doing well. You're going
doing
strong. You're
well.
just
What
gonna,
is doing well? It's doing good.
it has 50,000 people listening to it. I guess that's the point, right? If it resonates with 1/50,000th of those guests every episode, then you've positively affected 100 people potentially.
Right.
What's wrong with that? I'm trying to be the optimist here.
Nothing's wrong necessarily with it. It's just, I started the podcast. The whole point was to use the platform that I've created over the last 20 years to give voice to other people.
Mm.
That was it. It's like, well, so why don't I? And I've done that to some extent. I mean, it started out with way more of a social justice vibe to it. Here's someone doing the rolling debt jubilee, and here's the people working on green this or local currency.
Prison reform.
And it has kind of, shifted over time, partly because the Team Human book manifesto thing came out. It's moved more towards ideas.
So maybe it's not a podcast.
We'll see.
Like maybe you're beyond, you've moved beyond the awareness phase, right? Maybe phase 1 is awareness, and then phase 2 is action.
Right, or some kind of practice. I don't know. I just, and the other thing I didn't realize with the podcast is most of these people, even Russell Brand, whatever, they do seasons. I just did it every week for the last...
Oh, they do seasons?
Yeah, I've been doing it every week for the last 2.5 years.
No
They'll
way.
do like 8 or 10 of them and then take 8 or 10 weeks off.
I didn't know that. Does Joe Rogan do seasons or Sam Harris?
Even he does. I mean, but Joe Rogan's is pretty much easier for him. He just has this studio right near his home, and he goes in and
people they come.
bring him. Yeah,
They come.
They come.
You have
and
to
they
go
come
out
when
and
he
find
says,
guests.
right?
Yeah.
When he says, and it's a whole.
What a platform that guy's built. I mean,
He's got millions of people
megaphone.
listen to each one. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have millions of people listening to each one, then, and he just sits down, gets stoned with somebody, and
I'm sorry we didn't get stoned today. I mean, we could have, I was just kidding.
that's all right. So you're a yogi, though. Do you smoke pot while you're a yogi?
I don't really smoke weed anymore. I did when I was younger. It makes me super paranoid.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah, it gets really heady for me.
But you do yoga.
But I do yoga.
Have you ever done yoga in an altered state?
I have done yoga in an altered state, yes.
Does it work? Still?
Man, does it work. Actually, I have to say the best experience that I've had with cannabis, because it's not weed anymore, it's cannabis.
Yeah.
It's legal in California, is meditating on cannabis. It was very powerful. It was a very powerful experience. I had maybe even an out-of-body experience, I would say. It was cool. And cannabis
does it
is like
count?
light. What's up?
Does it count as meditation then?
I mean, I probably, I don't know if Yogananda would have approved of it,
Right.
but
It's funny. I
but
read,
it's an exploration nonetheless, right?
I read
Which is
David Lynch's book, Catching the Big Fish.
Ooh, I want to read that.
Really intense.
And that's
Really
big
super
Twin
small.
Peaks-
It's
Twin
small like
Peaks
Team
is
Human.
like-
It's easy way through. But it's basically an argument for why you should meditate. He talks a little bit about.
He's big into
making
TM,
movies.
right?
Right. That's the thing. Transcendental meditation, which is Maharishi's.
I listened to
Very
Tom Knowles'
specific.
podcast. Speaking of podcasts,
Yeah.
I just heard him interview this guy. Do you know Eddie Stern out of New York City?
Mm-hmm.
He started the Ashtanga movement in New York. Two masters of yoga going, not head to head, but really speaking their truth. So if Tom's out there doing a podcast and he was the Maharishi's, right hand man, I don't know. Maybe it's the right thing. Maybe it's the time for conscious awakening. Maybe it's the time for people like you to continue to speak out.
Yeah. I think the whole trick though is to do it on it's hard, but to do it on one's own schedule rather than if I don't do it every week.
I thought you were
going
to say to do it on psychedelics.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
That's what Rogan does.
Yeah, basically.
Rogan's show is basically, have you ever done DMT?
He asks that of everybody, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he ask you?
Yeah. And then he
What did you
smokes pot
answer?
with you right before, and then he pushes the ashtray out of the
Oh,
shot.
Interesting.
Not sure
So
why.
everyone's high. So it's not just Elon that's smoking weed. on
No,
Rogan's
everybody's
show.
high. When I went there, I asked him for everybody. He said, "Yeah, everyone got high except Daniel Pinchbeck."
No way.
I know, Mr. Ayahuasca.
Pinchbeck,
Right?
what? Come
It's
on.
great.
Ooh,
It's great.
I was thinking about having Daniel on the show one day, maybe. That could be cool.
I'm sure he'd do it.
He'd do it. I just saw him and Graham Hancock speaking, actually.
But that's another example. I mean, and that's part of it. When I'm sitting there, and I'm not to say he's not a nice person or whatever. Everyone can judge for themselves. But when I'm sitting there with him on did his podcast, that was another one of those experiences where I'm like, if
on Rogan's show or
on Pinchbeck.
On Pinchbeck show.
I'm like,
He has a
if this is-
podcast.
yeah, and I've just started to feel it was even during that
Hmm.
that it's like, well, if he's a mirror of what I'm doing, then I don't want to be doing this.
What was it about that experience that made you feel that way?
Intellectual, masturbatory, self-aggrandizing. Look at me, suck my dick. I'm great. It becomes, and it's real easy to do. But I can get caught up in it too. It's like competitive conversationalism.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? It's like
it's not truly conversation. That's like
It's
Twitter.
it's some weird cock blocking kind of and it feels really, really white and male to me. But I'm sure women do it. But it just starts to feel like it was what that Jordan Peterson Zizek debate of the heavyweight intellectuals. That felt like.
Here's
to
a
me.
question about that debate. Did either of them give ground or concede points or say, you know what, that
They
makes
agreed
sense?
that they agreed with each other. That they both thought it was highly likely that the human race was going extinct.
Okay, well, that's a positive.
Yeah,
positive
I mean, they
realization.
blamed slightly different things, but they thought that was sort of where it was going, and that's why it was just like it started to look like, people have accepted the inevitable demise of the species, and now the argument is just over who is most to blame.
Yeah, but
I don't buy that one.
you don't buy that.
No.
I think we'll survive. Humanity will survive in some form. I remain optimistic, but of course,
It's funny to say though that just think about that construction.
that's optimistic.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I think humanity will survive in some form, even past my lifetime. Oh wow, you are a hopeful dude.
Well, maybe maybe this psychedelic movement and the stuff that Pinchbeck talks about and Rogan's DMT obsession is they're trying to let us know that they've experienced a state where they felt non-human, and maybe that's really what the evolution of humanity is towards. I don't know if there is a towards or from or in, right? This soup of
the towards
oneness.
The towards feels like a Western template.
Yeah, you're right. It's like meditating with a goal. right? Like I meditate with the goal. Oh, I want to be more peaceful. I want to be more zen. Right? I know that that's bullshit. I know that that's not, but I think it's a good starting point.
Yeah, if it gets you in the room or it gets you sitting down, it almost doesn't matter, at least for a while. But, you would hope 10 years into it, you're doing it for its own sake. There's this great Talmudic passage where they're arguing about what's the real best, most important reason to read Torah. Is it to make us more ethical or to remember our history? And then the rabbis decide, no, it's lishma. The best reason to read Torah is to read Torah. It's for its own sake. And I would love to get there. Why live life? You live life to live life. You meditate to meditate.
Well, you did get there. I mean, you started with that exact concept, which is you have worth just by being. You don't need utility. That is the exactly lishma.
And I know this.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I
embody it.
Yeah.
But I think you do.
It's hard to. I mean, to some extent.
But you're human.
Right. I know.
That's part of Team Human. Like, we're fucking crazy.
I know. I'm not fully awakened spiritual warrior. I'm not a bodhisattva returned to this planet with divine serenity.
Are you a warrior of light?
No, I'm a New York neurotic, but I feel like I'm generations.
I almost called this show Garden Variety Neurotic.
There you go. No, but I feel like I'm generations more advanced than Woody Allen or somebody.
Why?
In terms of being a neurotic New York Jew, he's the neurotic New York Jew of the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah,
I'm less so, but I'm sure it's the same questions. The same kinds of questions about worth and virility and all the stuff that plagues little New York Jews.
Yeah, why? Why is that? What is the?
It's who we are.
Yeah, it's just to ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, you if your race has basically been culled in terms of who's paranoid enough to escape from where they're living before the shit comes
Forced
down.
evolution.
Then you're going to end up with a really particular kind of person, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and that paranoia of everyone's out to get you because of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many generations it takes to breed something into a people, but it's just been emotional.
I don't know. Maybe it's always been that way.
Medieval times, they've been running.
Yeah, even before that, I guess, with the destruction of the temples.
Right, since the Romans.
Yeah, I feel like you're to your point about competitive conversation and this mental circle jerk that we all go through. It's like you've been doing this for 20 years. Like, what do you feel is the most important? Like, what have you gotten out of it? Or not even the most important, just like how do you feel about your 20 years of work?
I feel like I was wiser at the beginning of it than I give myself credit for. I feel like this book I just did, Team Human, the book that's the closest to it really is my first book, Siberia. About the original kind of cyberdelic rave possibilities. The only thing, what happened over the last 20 years or so was I got an education in economics and the political economy of media and some philosophy and media theory. But so much of it was innate or intuitive in that early moment. I guess I was something of like almost like a little Jason Silva or something early on. Him, he's this sort of kid, kind of cheerleader for the digital future. But I was never...
yeah, he's a great orator.
Yeah, although I was never... He is, but I was never transhumanist. I always... And I was looking
back...
What
is transhumanist?
To get out of the body, move on to the next thing. To go beyond what it means to be human. Or to change it.
People are working on that right now.
Yeah, and I think that they're... I think it's
Have you ever met Brian Johnson? He's creating Kernel, which is like Neuralink before Neuralink. But I think he's working on empathy, which is interesting to me.
That's nice.
right? Like a human machine interface that engages our mirror neurons and makes us more compassionate potentially, or empathetic. Empathy doesn't mean compassion.
That'd be nice. I mean, I'm sure once we teach the AIs how to trigger that, though, then it'll be like, Mommy, don't turn me off. Mommy, please don't turn me off. You're hurting me. You're hurting me.
It's so dark.
Of course they will. That's all these. Whoever pays for the technology gets it, right? I mean, and our track record is so bad in how we deploy it. But even back then, in the early '90s, when I was writing that book, at the end of that book, I was saying, look, there's two ways this can go. We could go the Mondo way, or we can go the Wired way. You know, because Wired magazine, it was just coming up at the very end, just when I was in the last draft of that book. And I was concerned that we were going to throw away the possibilities, the sort of the human potential of this stuff for the market potential of it. And we went and did that.
You went full circle.
Yeah. So, you know, I've
thus
come back
proving the cyclical nature of
yeah,
reality.
Really. Look at this.
It's cool, no?
It's like perfume or something.
I think it is, yeah.
We're in an apartment for those who aren't aware of what we're doing.
Well, I think this was really great.
What did we do? An hour or so?
We did about an hour, yeah. I think that's probably, I want to say 1,000 times the average human attention span these days. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll see if anyone listens.
Yeah, someone said we're supposed to make these 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, But then you look at Joe Rogan and it's like 3 hours.
Well, I'm actually in the middle of figuring out exactly what length I want to do this. I'll do some A/B testing, right? I'll take some behavioral design or whatever it's called and see what people like.
Look at you with the A/B testing. I'm very impressed.
I honestly have no idea. I did one that was 30 minutes with Mickey Agarwal. That was great. I did one that was an hour and a half, and I listened to it expecting to cut out content. I was like, I don't want to cut out content from this, right? Like, people listen, they'll fast forward, I'll tag it, they can go wherever they want. No one's going to listen anyways for the first couple.
And you're going to edit right in there, right in Audacity.
You want to just start editing it right now?
Well, we are.
This is great. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you
for coming on. Thanks for coming to this random apartment.
Well, good
Anything
luck.
you want to leave the audience with before you go? I think we've covered a lot of ground, but here's your opportunity to just distill it all down.
Go outside, find other people, look in their eyes, sit with them and do nothing. Try to take a Sabbath if you can, one day a week, and go off all these technologies and experience yourself as you are. It's very resetting. It's, do your yoga. Do your yoga. Don't do competition yoga, though. I was in one of these classes downtown. Oh, my God. And part of it...
Instagram yoga.
Well, there is. And it's like, I think everybody's just like posing for the cover of Yoga Journal or something.
Well, there's the physical. I mean, I know we're about to cut out, but there's the physical competitive yoga. And now we're in the phase where every technologist is a meditator. So there's the who can be more mindful. I read, there's all this. It's like, it permeates. It injects itself into everything that we do. Like, who read more books this month? Who logged more meditation hours this month?
Oh, there's a metric for everything.
The meditation streak. You talked about that with Russell Brand. I've been listening to you. Man,
I hit his number yoga too.
What's that?
I randomly, magically hit his number of his streak.
I know. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Russell.
Well, yeah, so do your yoga. Russell, if you're listening, you can come on this great show one day too. And Douglas Rushkoff, thank you.
Thank you.
Rockin'. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that episode, and I hope that you're enjoying the podcast. It's been a really fun ride so far. I just get so excited every time I meet some of these incredible people and just love sharing their stories and ideas with you all. You can learn more about the show at thelookuppodcast.com. That's THE, lookuppodcast.com. You can follow me on social media at Wark Meinstein, WARCMEINSTEIN, on both Twitter, Instagram, and Medium. and Facebook. We have a Facebook page for the show as well, The Lookup Podcast, on Facebook. So check us out. You can also subscribe to our mailing list on the website for more future updates. If there's anything from the show that you want to catch, I've posted that in the show links for you to check out. And if there's any way that I can improve, please let me know. Feel free to reach out. If you have any guest recommendations, please let me know. Other than a couple of individuals who are helping me out in the background, this is a passion project and I'm always open to feedback and any kind of support. I want to thank Sam Palumbo and Patch Kid Music for the sound editing and the intro and outro song that he created. And I want to thank Hello There Collective for their support on my social media. You can check them out at hellotherecollective.com. All right, that's enough for me. I'm sure you're ready to go on to your next activity. Thank you for listening. And please come back again next week for another episode of the Lookup Podcast.